2003 AFL 1.8 litre Nissan Pulsar.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Optus Oval. Big round 14 action continues between two sides who have had disappointing seasons, so a victory all important. It is Carlton, 14th on the AFL ladder, up against Melbourne, 13th, both sides, with 4 wins and 9 losses as this Melbourne side come out onto the field, coming off a 42-point victory last week against St Kilda at the MCG. Magnificently led by their skipper David Neitz, who kicked 7 goals and once again will be a pivotal player in this afternoon's proceedings. As I welcome Jared Hilly to the telecast. Jared, a glorious day here in Melbourne, and it should be a pretty fair contest.
Should be, Gary. Both sides had very different weekends last week, and as you said, Melbourne most impressive. The Blues pretty ordinary here at their home ground, got smashed by the Adelaide Crows and left the ground with their tail certainly between their legs. They're going to have to really be here today, switched on and ready to make amends. And they've changed their structure a bit. Pretty tall side, the Blues, which could impact significantly from a tactical perspective on Demons.
It will indeed. We'll have a look at that Carlton side shortly. But first, the AFL ladder will give you some idea of just how tight it is at the top end, and I guess when you're playing 13th and 14th on the ladder, respect and credibility are all issues that need to be addressed. I think Melbourne's expectations, certainly externally, would have been much higher than Carlton's coming into this season, so it'd be a fair scalp if the Blues were able to claim Melbourne.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt Carlton came into this season, most people expecting them to finish in the bottom 4, if not 16th. Melbourne, well, they were expected to finish in the top 8 minimum, and yet they are languishing in what's been an ordinary season for them. They've had their reasons, of course. They won't put them up as excuses, and no point even trying. But they need a victory again. And
it is a pretty sad and sombre occasion here, it has to be said, at Optus Oval. That is Jared Waite, the son of Vin Waite, who was a dual premiership player, 1970 and 72. Played 153 games with the Blues. He died, sadly, of a heart attack at 54 years of age. And he was much loved down here, Jared. You could tell as we walked into the ground there were a lot of sad faces around the place. There had been flowers placed on the benches in various parts of the oval. So we wish Jared all the well. Take some courage to back up and play. So our condolences to the Waite family.
And both sides, Gary, will be wearing black armbands, not just Carlton as you saw, but also the Melbourne Footy Club as a sign of respect for Vin and the family.
Indeed, it's a nice touch. Neil Danaher is the coach of the Melbourne Footy Club. Michael Roberts caught up with him a little earlier this afternoon.
They get a bit of height in their forward line too. You're going to have to look at that closely.
Yeah, look, I think that's the tactic today. We've got small running, fleet-footed players. I think they'll try and stack their forward line with tall players. You know, they brought Angwin and French in, both 200 centimetres, so that'll obviously be the tactic today. We need to bring the ball to ground and see if we can run it, and I'll be hoping to catch it, obviously.
Good luck today.
Good on you, mate. Cheers.
The Demons have won 7 of their last 9 encounters against Carlton by an average margin of 21 points, and even when Melbourne were well down the bottom and Carlton were at the top, they had a very, very good record against Carlton. Jared, they feel pretty comfortable up against the Blue Boys.
Any reasons for that?
I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where the matchups were, where they were strong in one area, perhaps where Carlton were a little deficient, but they'll be pretty keen to notch up their 5th win for the season. They've got one change. Luke Williams comes in. Scott Thompson's a player out, but 42 points the margin last week. You wouldn't want to fiddle with it too much.
No, you wouldn't, but you can just see with Nicholson and Ferguson, just a kid in his first year, and probably Bizzle, they're the 3 guys that will be given the task of matching the tools. I wouldn't be surprised if Kuda ended up down there with so many big ruckman type. It would seem a waste just to have Kuda running around being the ruckman as he has done so many times. So don't be surprised to see Kuda spend a fair bit more time up in the forward line.
Yeah, David Neitz looms as a big obstacle for Carlton. He kicked 9 goals against Carlton last week, and I reckon when they recruited Mickey Martin, this was the player that they had in mind as much as anyone else. And he's coming off a terrific game against Max Hudson, kicked 7 last week for the aid of 1 or 2 free kicks, it's got to be said. But this is a very good indication of what sort of form he's in. When he's in this sort of kicking form, you know that David Neitz is having a pretty fair afternoon.
I think you described that goal last week as one of the finest set shots of goal for the season, and you can see exactly why. He is the King Kong of gorillas, and as you said, that's why Mick Martin has been recruited. It's a short-term recruiting policy. If it is to be seen as a success, he's got to keep David Neitz to 2 or 3 goals or less, and the Blues have got to go pretty close to winning if they can do that.
That man there is Lawrence Angwin. He's 20 years of age, Jared. He's 200 centimetres, weighs about 93 kilos. He was elevated to the senior list this week after being Carlton's second selection in the rookie draft. So he was taken a couple of years ago by Adelaide in the draft, very highly rated, taken at number 7 in actual fact. He's got size about him, and if he can just really develop himself down here, he could be one of those pickups that the Blues really do need.
Yeah, he represents, I think, the future for Carlton. They've got their problems with the draft, as we all know. They've got to be able to unearth kids like Angwin who have been lost to footy or have had a few personal problems. Nobody wants them. They're discards in some ways, but they've got plenty of talent. Dennis Pagan's got a great track record with this sort of boy, and let's hope that this is the start of a 10-year career for him at the Blues.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch, of course, and one of the veterans that will be helping him to get through is Scott Camperell. He had a pretty fair afternoon last week against the Adelaide Crows. They need him up and firing again. Indeed, they need all their senior players playing well. The Blues, if they are to get across the line, it's going to be a pretty interesting contest. We'll take a break, be joined by Brian Taylor and Eddie Maguire for Sunday Football. Welcome back to Optus Oval. It is Carlton up against Melbourne. Round 14 action continues as I welcome Eddie Maguire and Brian Taylor to the broadcast. This is a hugely emotional moment, of course, for young Jared Waite on the passing of his father, Vin. And, well, he rang Dennis Pagan this morning and said, I want to play, and it's an enormous effort, boys.
Yeah, you wish him all the very best. To Jared Waite and to the Waite family, of course, Vin, a sensational player in the 1970 and 72 premiership sides, two of the greatest ever Carlton premiership wins, 153 games of football, and we wish him all the best. A huge mental test for him, but a huge tribute to his father as well, who was so very, very proud of his son making it into the famous old Navy Blues.
Indeed. Let's go down to Michael Roberts before Brian Taylor gets us underway.
Thanks, Gary. Just quickly, too, picking up on those flowers. They were left on the interchange bench of Carlton. Just a fantastic gesture for Jared and for Vin Waite. Tremendous courage by the kid. And it'll be very interesting to see how he goes in this first quarter. He is starting.
And also, congratulations to the Melbourne Football Club wearing black armbands in support of Jared Waite. Not necessarily in memory of Vin Waite, but in support of Jared. A tremendous gesture.
Absolutely. So all involved here as we start this round 14 clash. The Demons and the Blues in the middle of the ground. The tap out.
2003 AFL Premiership season is brought to you by Harvey Norman, the Extreme Nissan X-Trail, and Telstra.
Goal already. Cousins still running. Gives it to James Hurd. Screws it around the front.
Carlton are on the canvas after a record belting last weekend and a gruelling week on the training track. Sides coached by Dennis Pagan have always hit back hard when their pride has been questioned. And there's no prouder club than the old dark navy Blues. But Sydney will be no pushovers, as big bad bustling Barry showed the last time he was here. A win for the Swans keeps them in the hunt for the double chance. It's Carlton hosting the Sydney Swans at Optus Oval on Saturday afternoon. And good afternoon and welcome to a beautiful day here in Melbourne as the Sydney Swans enter the arena for this round 16 clash against the Carlton team, which has been under a fair bit of pressure this week. Tony Shaw joins me. Tony, it's a lot of talk about Carlton this week with Brett Ratten retiring as well, but Sydney seem to slip under everyone's guard, and that's the way the whole season's been going.
Yeah, Paul Roos has done it very well, hasn't he? They're going for top 4, so they have to win here today, but Carlton on the rebound, and they've had a rugged week on the track, as you said, with Dennis Pagan, and I think they'll come out firing, there's no doubt about that.
A record loss, 116 points against the West Coast. Did they have to go through this process of a slog at training just to remind them?
I think you can do it other ways, especially like do one-on-one and things like that. But when you play match practice, you've got players coming from different angles. You can be tackled from behind, and then you become susceptible to injury. And so here's Anthony Koutafidis gets taken. If his leg was caught underneath, Justin Davies cut his eye. That's not a bad problem. He'll have a couple of stitches now there. But this was the big one. Lance Whitnell taken down. As I said, he was caught from behind, and that means now he's out for the rest of the season. I think you can find other ways of doing it.
Yes, tragic news for Carlton fans with Whitnell going down, but it will be very interesting to see how they come out at the start. We'd expect a pretty fiery start from them.
Oh, yeah, I've got no doubt. I wonder, and I don't think they have got the skill to beat a Swan side at playing good football at the moment. But as you say, whenever your club's questioned, you have to find out and you have to start the game early and start it hard, and I've got no doubt that will happen.
Well, let's take a look at the respective teams for this afternoon, starting at the Carlton forward line. Favola did try hard last week, like Whitnell. I mean, they did have a few good players last week.
Yeah, Adrian Hickmont too. Favola, he's been pretty good this year. Adrian Hickmont has to improve. Shawwell will probably play on Favola, but Saddington can go to him if he becomes a problem.
The Sydney backline has been terrific. I mean, unheralded, a couple of names like Bolton and Barry, they're having their best seasons, and Ty Kennelly's a revelation.
Oh, Ty Kennelly's been sensational. Leo Barry, big thumping left foot kick, and he runs the lines, and that's what all the Swans players do under Paul Roos.
Anthony Koutafides in the middle. Now, you reckon he might go with Adam Goods?
Well, who's going to match up on Adam Goods? It couldn't be Matty Allen, and it can't be Barnaby French because he'd be too mobile. Anthony Koutafides could have the job on him because he's fairly tall also, so that can be a matchup. I'd love to see that matchup though, Koutafides and Goods.
Can't wait. Beaumont McKay, once again,
Great player.
Week in, week out, he plays terrific footy.
And Jared Waite, look, he's been a sensation this year also, shows he's going to have a future. Jude Bolton, hasn't he been an improved player for the Swans playing across half forward?
What about the Sydney forward line? O'Loughlin, Hall and Davis. There's some class there.
Is there some class? O'Loughlin got back to some form the last couple of weeks. Davis, can kick goals from outside 50. And Bustling Barry, as they call him, tough and hard at it. But I think an underrated player too, Barry Hall.
Yes, he does some team-orientated things that a lot of people don't see, doesn't he? The Ruckman, French taking on Ball. It's an interesting comparison for their seasons. Ball's having a good one. Barnaby French probably needs to step up. He hasn't taken a mark, any sort of mark, contested or uncontested, for over a month.
Well, that's amazing, isn't it? And that's 14 games against 15 with Jason Ball, but it's about 50 or 60 average total possessions and hit-outs, balls ahead. Barnaby French has to have an impact, so does Matty Allen for Carlton to win.
He has to give people like Camperelli and Hume first use of the football. Williams and Creswell, two experienced players there, and they do the job. The respective benches for Carlton, Allen's going to have to help out French, as you mentioned.
Yep.
And Nix, Sundquist, Schneider is a very good player.
Well, when you think that Matthew Nix is on the bench, you think Sydney Swans are travelling pretty good at this stage, aren't they?
They certainly are, and they'll be pleasing their coach, Paul Roos. And here he is with Wayne Schwass.
Complacency, is that something that you've addressed with your players?
I think one of our strengths this year has been just taking each opponent as they come. I mean, we haven't really sort of got ahead ourselves, and the guys sort of don't tend to look at the opposition and say, look, we're playing Carlton this week and West Coast last week and Collingwood next week, whatever it's going to be. So it certainly hasn't been a problem for us this year. So I just hope our guys go about it the way they have. And if we do and they do, it should be a really terrific game.
It's been a much publicised week for Carlton on the training track. Do you expect the same this afternoon?
Definitely, definitely. As I said, I mean, when teams get belted like they have, and everyone's been through that, we've all been in games where we've underachieved dramatically. I've done it as a player, and you know the next week you're going to be completely different, and there's no doubt in front of their home crowd. They've still got a lot to play from. Obviously, spots on the list, next year for the Carlton boys. So I certainly think the first quarter would be, particularly torrid.
Yes, it certainly will be. And, Tony, there's been a lot of talk about taggers during the week, that the umpires will be looking at them differently. There's one there.
You have to change your game now because I've got no doubt if you scrag, the umpires will give free kicks early. The other thing is possessions. Carlton play a lot of tagging on ballers. I think they've got to release them a little bit. You're up against the Swans who are free-flowing. There's Brett Kirk. They have taggers also, but they do run the lines and receive the ball, the Swans taggers. Release the pressure from the Carlton taggers because they're not negating well anyway.
Yeah, we look at Franchina 5 possessions. We look at Kirk getting 14. Darren Hume, another one, averaging 12. I mean, he's a talented player, and so I agree. I think just let him be released and go get the footy.
Yeah, look, put some pressure on the opposition to stop him from having an impact. And Jared Crouch is normally the tagger for the Swans, and there he is there. He only averages 9 possessions, 4 tackles. I think he's about 5 or 6 in the competition in tackles. So I think, give some freedom to the Carlton taggers.
Yes, Jared Crouch does the job for Paul Roos. The man who'll be doing the job for us down the boundary is Wayne Schwass. Good afternoon, Wayne.
Good afternoon, Matthew. It's a great day for football. The sun is shining. There's very few clouds in the skies. Crowd's a little bit disappointing, so let's hope that all the Carlton supporters who aren't here get down here and support their side.
Yes, Wayne, it should be a good day for you down on the boundary. It certainly was a good day for Brett Ratten. 255 games, 3 best and fairest and a premiership. And before we go to the break, he said goodbye to his fans here at Optus Oval.
The Twos and Drafts Chip Season is brought to you by Harvey Norman, Telstra,
Yes, welcome to the Telstra Dome, the round 22 clash between Carlton and the Kangaroos as the Roos make their way out onto the ground. 11th position, 10 wins, 10 losses and a draw. Lost 3 of their last 4, just a couple of late season fade-outs, which has cost them a berth in the September action. Big afternoon for that man, Brent Harvey, playing his 150th game for the club after making his debut back in this round 7 years ago. All-Australian Whitten medalists and one of the stars of the competition. There's the Blues sitting in 15th spot. They have avoided the dreaded wooden spoon for the second year running after the Bulldogs went down to Brisbane last night. They sit in 15th position with 4 wins and 17 losses. I welcome along Wayne Schwass. Wayne, these two teams not going to make the finals action. It's their last hurrah for 2003, but still plenty to play for.
Absolutely, Jason. It's important that they finish off the season on a good note. Both sides will be going out there to win the game, and unfortunately there'll be that loser. But look, the Carlton side do need the win, probably a little bit more so than the Kangaroos.
Always a bit of feeling between the Roos and Carlton. We've had some players swapping teams in recent times. We've had the coach swapping teams in recent times. Let's hear from one man from each camp. Firstly, Kangaroo skipper Anthony Stevens, then Carlton coach Dennis Pagan.
A lot to play for. There's a milestone, there's a retirement, and there's probably even futures on the line.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got Big Spider who's retiring, so we'd love to have a great win for him and send him off on a good note. He's been a sensation since he's come over from Fremantle to North Melbourne. And Brent Harvey's playing his 150th game today, and you know, just from the time that he was at North, he bubbles around the club, and he's been sensational and been so consistent since he started. It'd be a great way to finish the year off having a win for Boomer in his 150th.
So today, are the shackles off? How do you want to see the boys play the game?
We've had the shackles off for about 8 weeks, Tiffany. We've encouraged them to take every chance in the book, and I really mean that. We spoke about it again today, and last time we played the Kangaroos here in round 5, we did exactly that. We've said that there'll be no negativity at all from anybody. We want to make sure you just run like there's no tomorrow, and if they do that and make a few blues, well, so be it.
Well, we hope to see that smile still on your face at the end of the game. Good luck.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Cheers.
Well, you know Dennis as well as anyone, he would be desperate to beat his old side twice in the 1 year.
Absolutely, and it'd be something that he'd be getting the message across to his players. Let's just do what we did last time we played the Kangaroos to great success.
And here come the Blues, as I mentioned, sitting in 15th position. They've lost their last 9 by an average of almost 10 goals. But another day, another opportunity, and for a lot of these players out there this afternoon, playing for their careers, it's a big day for them.
I think they've been playing for their careers over the last 12 rounds, but look, they've got to make sure they give themselves an opportunity to come back next year.
Let's take a look at the ladder. A big afternoon of football, and a no bigger game than Port Adelaide and Adelaide this afternoon over in Adelaide for a spot in the top 8. Port Adelaide finished on top of the ladder. They will finish minor premiers. The Crows, well, they've got everything to play for this afternoon. We'll give you an update score on that game shortly. The Kangaroos, well, they can finish as high as 9th position if things go their way this afternoon.
That would be a good finish, but it would also be disappointing with 3 late losses to St Kilda, Hawthorn and Freo, proving very costly for the Kangaroos.
Well, we mentioned that game in Adelaide. Let's get you an update score right now. Port Adelaide taking on the Crows in the big showdown. A replay obviously coming up on Fox Footy after this game, so if you don't want to know the score, look away now. Well, it's a big afternoon for tipsters all around Australia. The tipping competition's coming down to the wire. Let's take a look at these two sides, Carlton and the Kangaroos. The Blues have struggled up forward for most of the year, but Fisher has been a bit of a highlight.
He has been a bit of a highlight, but the player next door to him, Corey McKernan, has had a disappointing year after a 2002 best and fairest. He'll need to fire against Lee Colt this afternoon.
Brendan Favola, been a star.
Been a standout, 58 goals, could have been up near the 75 mark. Shannon Watt has been given some big jobs and has done quite well. He'll have another great tussle with Brendan Favola this afternoon.
Through the middle of the ground, another highlight for the Blues has been John McCormick, come off the rookie list at the start of the season.
He's done terrifically well and matched up against Corey Jones, 2 emerging players for both sides.
And Jeremy Clayton, another off the rookie list who's shown a bit for the Kangaroos there in the midfield. Take a look across that half-forward line for the Roos. There's a lot to like in the years to come.
Exciting. Daniel Harris relished the opportunity in the wet last week. Drew Petrie can consolidate centre forward. Daniel Motlop, a lot of exciting talent there.
Another big afternoon for Severio Rocker. He was great in the wet last week.
He was. He finally found the football. His kicking was a little bit off, but he's a focal point for them when he's playing well.
Take a look at the on-ball brigades for both sides.
Barnaby, French and Porter up against his old side. You've nominated Lee Brown as the man most likely to start on
I
Cooter.
saw Lee Brown play against Fremantle. He picked up Matthew Pavlich. I think he's probably the best option to run with Anthony Koutafidis. Expect Aaron Hume to run with the Kangaroos rover in Adam Simpson.
There's the two benches. Lawrence Angwin returns to the side after 5 weeks with an ankle injury. Glenn Manton, will it be his last game in the dark navy blue and white?
On the other hand, is impressive.
Les McMartin, who's hung up the boots after 300 games, a great old mate of yours, a wonderful career.
Yes, it's been a fitting tribute, and it's unfortunate the AFL loses one of its real characters in Mick, but he's been an ornament for the game and deserves every accolade he gets.
Wonderful career with the Kangaroos and then on to the Blues this year. Spider Burton, his final game this afternoon as well, game number 147 after starting his career with the Fremantle Dockers. As we say farewell to Mick Martin and Matthew Burton. The two skippers, Andrew McKay and stand-in captain Brent Harvey this afternoon in his 150th game, standing in for the injured Anthony Stevens. The Blues have won the toss. They will go to the left of screen in the opening term as we head boundary side. Welcome, Tiffany Cherry.
Thank you, Jason. Well, apart from pride, both teams playing for the opportunity to give their retiring players a send-off they deserve. For the Kangaroos, well, Spider Burton is playing, so he gets a say in his own send-off. But for the Blues, they've said as long as they don't get pumped, they will bring their 3 retirees, Brett Ratten, Adrian Hickmott and Mickey Martin, onto the ground for a final farewell. And just a word on Mickey Martin, the word inside the Kangaroos camp is that a few of the players will go over and cheer off their former teammate if he does come down.
That'll be a nice touch and a fitting farewell for Mick Martin, such a wonderful servant with so many years with the Kangaroos, and on to Carlton this year as I welcome Anthony Hudson. G'day, Huddo.
Good afternoon, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. Back from Perth for last night, saw a sensational game over there. Hopefully this will be, well, half as good, and it'll be a terrific contest. Saw one of the longest send-offs of all time to Ashley McIntosh after the game on the ground at Subiaco, and yet, depending on results, he might be back playing again there next week.
Well, the Roos have won 8 of their last 11 against Carlton, but last time they met, round 5 here, Wayne, it was the Blues by 9 points, and Brendan Favola outstanding with 8 goals, a personal best.
Yes, he was terrific last time round, and it's been a reflection of his year so far. He's been absolutely fantastic. One player that can certainly get a lot out of what he's achieved this year.
Glenn Archer has the start on Brendan Favola at centre-half forward. There's Corey McKernan deep in the goal square against Colbert as we get underway. The round 22 clash, Carlton and the Roos. French with the opening hit out. Chance for the Roos to run onto it. Archer taken down.
Brought to you by Carlton.